Do not attempt anything you're about to see in this video at home. I'm what you call a highly intelligent dumbass. Hey, Keith from One Tiny Problem here again, and this is episode 4 of our behind the scenes of the setup of the project studio. I'm excited about this particular episode because in getting this set up, I had a lot of questions about PTZ cameras, and a lot of times the information was just absent, even from the manufacturer, or the information that was out there was confusing or incomplete. So I wanted to put this together to give you a leg up if you're interested in using PTZs for the first time. This is not going to be a deeply technical video about all of the various and sundry things. This is just basic wiring and setup, because that was the part that I found was missing. I even asked specific questions of the manufacturer and they weren't able to answer them to my satisfaction. With that out of the way, I want to underscore that in the behind the scenes footage that you're about to see, I did a lot of things absolutely wrong. And I injured myself. So do with that information what you will. Don't do it the way that I did it. I did it this way because I wanted to get it done quickly. I had a trip scheduled and I wanted to try to get this part of the project at least tested, test some of the theories that I concocted in the absence of actual credible documentation for the wiring and setup of these particular cameras. What I want to show is how I got to where we're at now. But I want to make sure that you understand that when you're doing a project like this, it is important to use the right tool for the job. In this case, what you want is not what I'm about to show you, but you want a wire stripper. And again, I sliced my finger open. I burned my fingertips. No need to go to the hospital or anything like that. It wasn't the end of the world, but it could have gone really, really wrong. I actually had a weird nightmare this morning about X-Acto knives as my brain was sort of getting ready to come into the studio and do this portion. So with that out of the way, I'm going to cut over to a narrated hypercut of the process of setting up these cameras with some tips for you to get them going. And then we'll jump into the setup of the joystick controller and then the ATEM Mini Pro, which we're going to be using to pump out the signal either to hard disk or to Ethernet, or because it's the ATEM Mini Pro, we can do both at the same time. Okay, stay tuned. Thanks for coming along for the ride. I'm glad you're here. If you're liking what you're seeing and hearing, please do all the things so that we can give the channel a little boost and more people can find this info. Back to the programming. I shit you not, the manufacturer sent me an instructional video using these tools. A pair of pliers, a cigarette lighter, a screwdriver, yeah, that tracks, and then some of these Phoenix connectors. These are the 3.81 millimeter size. I'll put a link to these in the description. The manufacturer didn't specify what type of cable to use. I asked them directly. They didn't give me an answer. So I just used some scrap Cat 5 cable that I had laying around. Yeah, don't use a box cutter. Wire stripper is the way to go. Whatever cable you're using, you're going to want to pull out a pair. In this case, I'm using Cat 5, so it's got a bunch of pairs in there. What you want to make sure to do if you are using Cat 5 is just identify a colored pair and then make sure you use the same colored pair on both ends. Here I am very, very dangerously trimming off some wire housing, and you can see here I've got the basics for my connection. Once you got those stripped and ready to go, you can plug them into your Phoenix connector
and then tighten down the screws to make sure you get a snug connection. Once you got both ends, go ahead and test them to make sure that they're secure and you're not going to get a jerk out. And then you can go to the back of your controller. Now this one came with a connector already installed, which was a little confusing, but I figured, okay, pull it out. Take one end, put it into your controller. You know where I'm going with this. The other end is going to go into the PTZ camera. Just like that, you've got a nice solid connection. I went ahead and powered up the camera. It goes through its boot routine. And then shortly, it'll be ready for operation. Your joystick controller, if you choose to use one, might be a little bit different than the one that I'm using, but basic operation should be similar or the same. You can use that controller to pan, tilt, and zoom to your heart's content. Very cool.
So now that you have seen the wiring for one of the cameras, I multiplied that by 3. So I have a total of 3 cameras set up so that I can do something like this. I can switch from my presenter camera to the overhead camera, and then over to the over-the-shoulder shot for a close-up of the gaming table. And pardon the light stand in the way here. As you know, if you've been watching this series, this entire studio is a work in progress, so things are not in their final configuration. With that said, I also want to apologize for the poor audio quality. I don't have my audio fully set up for this, so I'm just recording off of the laptop, which is suboptimal, but it's behind the scenes. It's not supposed to be perfect, right? Hopefully, once we get everything tightened up, we'll have some really great lighting, really great audio, and we'll have a lot of fun. I do a lot of teaching on Zoom, and that's kind of why I decided to go with PTZs and with the switcher, so I could more seamlessly switch between different camera angles, switch over to what I'm displaying on my laptop, etc. So I want to show you a little bit about the power of PTZs. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and call up the side view here that's going to be coming from our overhead camera, and you'll see the joystick controller and so on. To start off, we're looking at the top-down position for camera number 2, which if you saw the walkthrough video that I just posted up a little while ago, you saw that I have a overhead rig with one camera pointing down, in this case looking down at my gaming mat. The cool thing about a pan, tilt, and zoom, or PTZ camera, is that it allows you to remotely reconfigure the camera's point of view based on panning, tilting, and zooming. So I can rotate the camera around, I can tilt it up or down, and I can change the zoom. So P, T, and Z, pan, tilt, and zoom. Now, the real power of this is that once you have these cameras set up and controlled by something like a hardware controller, you can then punch in presets and then move between them very easily. Apologies in advance, the keyboard is very tactile and makes a lot of noise. So let's call up preset number 1 to just set us back into our original position. And there we go, we're back to that. So if you're doing a lot of content creation where you're moving between preset camera angles and you're a small, like, one-person band, this can be a huge time saver as opposed to setting up the camera multiple times, moving your sticks around. Let's call up position number 3. And now you can see the actual joystick controller itself. So your particular device will be different than the one that I have. I decided to go really, really cheap. This is my very first experience with PTZs. I was excited to learn more about them, and I could see the utility in being able to, with a very, very small crew. In my case, it's a lot of times a crew of one for doing quick content for the internet, or what I do a lot of, which is Zoom teaching, very seamlessly being able to switch between different cameras and different camera angles without eating up a whole lot of class time. We want to make those Zoom teaching experiences as rich and complete as they can be for the students, and I don't want them sitting around waiting and for me to move the camera around and try to hold things up to the camera. So let's call up position number 4. And now you can see a wider angle of the whole setup, the joystick controller, and then the ATEM Mini Pro, which I'm using to switch between cameras 1, 2, and 3. So that's the basics of it. And with this joystick controller, you can go and set presets for all of your different cameras, and then instantly, or as instantly as you just saw, call up those presets and move between the different shots. Very excited to put these things in action. Again, I went super cheap. The ones that I have are, I say only, but only 1080p and only 10 times zoom. There are other ones out there. I also opted not to go with the NDI versions that are out there because they're much more expensive, but they are much more powerful. And those are used in professional production studios. So I hope that is enough to get you excited about it. If you have any questions, definitely put them into the comments below. Final thoughts for the day. I hope that these videos are useful to you, and I'm having a lot of fun making them. Excited about this whole process and project. But I want to also share with you something that I wish I knew a lot earlier in my career, and that is there's always going to be better equipment out there. There's always going to be a new camera, a new whatever. Right size your purchases. I'm going to have another video on that coming out soon once everything is up and running and dialed in here in the studio. Thanks for joining me along the way. I hope to see you on the next one. Peace.